Hey, what's up everybody? Michael from RogueDeckBuilder.com here doing just a little update before I show you guys the single gameplay that I have for this Tempo Storm deck. And this is I just made a couple of changes. I knocked down Jace to a 2 of and added in Kiora. I actually think Kiora is super nice in this deck because with Jace and Kiora, we both have ways of locking down aggressive matchups, and we have ways of locking down monster matchups. Or if we have to stop like Desecration Demons or things like that, Kiora allows us to do that, as well as when we're looking for overloaded Mizzy Mortars or Cyclonic Rift, for example, and we need that extra land, we're also able to -1 Kiora and draw a card and potentially grab that extra land off the top of the deck with Courser of Krufix, which is nice. So it also does give us another way of drawing cards. It's another way for us to attack decks. So it overall works extremely well in this game plan, and it's still within the same mana cost as Jace's. We are losing 1 Blue Devotion, but that is a very minor thing. I also added in another Courser of Krufix just because it's one of the best cards in the deck, I feel, just for getting incremental advantage over the course of the game. And what else did I do? I added in... No, I believe I already had 2 Aether Eyes. I added in more Cyclonic Rifts because that's one of our best tempo cards. I knocked down Frost Breath to 1 because I felt it's better just sort of as a finisher if we have to tap down their board to be able to swing through for the win, or if we need to play a little bit defensively. I just wanted a nice diverse set of bounce spells or detaining type spells. So 1 Frost Breath. I added in a Simic Charm as well for the hexproof, as well as it is one of the underplayed charms in my opinion. All of the things are relevant, and it does have a bounce effect in it, so it still works in the game plan. We can use it as a finisher, like give +3/+3 to Stormbreath Dragon, for example, is really, really sweet. As well as, or we can just give all of our permanents hexproof, so that's nice as well because it makes our Planeswalkers hexproof as well for Detention Sphere or Banishing Light or things of that nature. Turn and Burn, left it at 2. I added in a Voyager's End in place of one of the Frost Breaths because Voyager's End, the Scry is actually really nice in this deck, and this deck is mostly going up against creature matchups, so being able to bounce back creatures is the main thing. I don't remember if I changed anything in the sideboard. I might have added an Anger of the Gods, I think. I don't think so. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm sure you guys would know. But that's all the changes I did. I just wanted to make this quick little update before showing you guys the gameplay. So let us get on with the gameplay next. Alright, time to show you guys the single game that I played with this. This is the very first game I actually played with this deck, and what I found is A, this deck is extremely hard to play, and B, it is extremely hard to play. It's very, very different than a lot of decks. There's not many decks that play a lot of bounce spells, and figuring out which order to play your spells in, whether to leave up bounce spells or not, is very, very difficult. And at one point in this game, I definitely got greedy, trying to hit an Overload Cyclonic Rift, and that almost costed me the game. I think I tilted my opponent, honestly, with the bounce spells that I had, because he made some pretty game-breaking mistakes later on in the game, but let us get on with the gameplay. So we are on the draw, sadly, which definitely sucks. Being on the play is preferable with this deck, just because you have access to a little bit more mana, being able to hold up certain bounce spells, but this is a definite keep. We have one Scryland, 3 lands, plus a turn 2 play, and we're able to decide which we want to play. If we need to ramp into things faster, we can play Sylvan Caryatid. If we just want to get a bigger defender and attacker out there, we can play Frostburn Weird. And we can ramp into Kiora if we want to, as well as ramp into our Turn and Burn, which is one of our best removal spells pretty much in any matchup. So let's get on with things. My opponent plays a Blood Crypt tapped. I play a Temple of Abandon, and I scry a... I scry Niv Mizzet Draco Genius to the bottom of my library just because he is one of our better cards in this deck, but seeing black-red, I'm thinking either mono black Devotion with Splash Red or something along those lines, or even Rakdos aggro plays plays some removal spells in their deck, and I only have 1 Niv Mizzet in my deck, but playing him and then having it die to just like a Doomblade or something isn't really what I want. So like we already have a good setup, and I don't think that card's going to help us. We're just going to get to it a little bit too slow, so I scry it to the bottom. Opponent untaps, he plays a Forest and plays a Sylvan Caryatid. I draw a Voyage's End. Can't target Sylvan Caryatid, so that's not really a huge deal. So I end up just playing my Sylvan Caryatid and matching his ramp. He untaps, plays a Pelucranos next, which is one of his larger threats, and definitely a turn 3 Pelucranos is very, very strong. We draw a Courser of Kruphix. So here I have the option of doing a couple of things. I could play the Courser of Kruphix and then play Stomping Ground, gain a life, and then just sort of take 5. I didn't really want to do that. I want to minimize the amount of damage as possible and really just buy me time. That's the aim of the game with this deck, is to just use your spells in a way where you can buy yourself time to get to your larger threats, or at least in a position to lock down your opponent's threats with cards like Kiora or Jace. So that is the name of the game with this this deck. So I opt to just play my Frostburn Weird, and then I shock myself to leave up Voyage's End for Pelucranos. So this allows me to slow him down a lot, and if he wants to play Pelucranos as well, he has to utilize his mana for his turn that way, and it also allows me to get a Scry off of Voyage's End. This is another big reason why I like Voyage's End, because Scry is always helpful. So I pass the turn after shocking myself for Stomping Ground. My opponent plays Xenagos, which is a pretty tough card to deal with just because it gives all of his creatures haste, or most of his creatures haste pretty much when they enter the field. But luckily we do have the Voyage's End to bounce it back. Xenagos isn't a creature at this point though, so we can't target him with Voyage's End. He swings in, we just Voyage's End Pelucranos, so saving us a butt ton of damage as well as getting a Scry off of it, which is nice. I Scry a Temple of Abandon to the bottom of my library. I don't really want another land. I want to start drawing more spells, and we do draw a Cyclonic Rift, which is awesome. One of our best bounce spells in any matchup, really. So here I just attack for 1, because I want to be able to use my mana to play Courser of Kruphix. And we reveal a Stormbreath Dragon on top of our library, which again is just a really, really sweet card. Might even consider bumping that up to 4 just because of how good it is. And since we do have 4 Sylvan Caryatid, we usually more often than not can ramp into it quite easily. And especially with Courser, we're allowed to, be able to hit our land drops when we want. Play a Stomping Ground untapped, just taking 1 thanks to Courser Kruphix, so I'm leaving up mana for Cyclonic Rift. Again, pretty much slowing him down, because Xenagos gives Pelucranos haste when it comes into the field, so I just want to be ready for that, or Stormbreath Dragon, or any other threat, really, that he has going for him. So he plays his Pelucranos, and here, in response, I actually bounce the Xenagos Reveler back to his hand. It uses a little bit more mana, as well as we have the turn and burn to get rid of Pelucranos as it is, and because Xenagos doesn't have enough devotion to be a creature, we can't actually turn and burn it at this point. So here I want to bounce the Xenagos before he can give the haste to Pelucranos, and then next turn we can turn and burn Pelucranos and kill it off. And we have another Cyclonic Rift sitting on top of our library, which is awesome. Hopefully getting to that overloaded area. So here I had the choice of playing Stormbreath Dragon, but I know he's probably going to be playing Xenagos at this point. So I just wanted to hold turn and burn up to deal with any threat that he possibly may have, and especially Stormbreath Dragon was another threat that was on my radar because that thing inherently has haste. So I want to be ready for that. But here's how you see sort of the way the deck works is essentially we're just buying ourselves time till we can start gaining an advantage over the course of the game and start drawing into our threats. We do have to end up sandbagging them for a couple of turns, but it's still worth it if we can just get into a position. That's the hardest part about this deck, is just really maneuvering the game in a way where you can land your threats and be able to win that way. So here we go, Stormbreath Dragon, just like I thought, or one of the outcomes I thought. So he ends up attacking just with Stormbreath Dragon. I wasn't really sure why this was. I mean, I guess he was worried about me double blocking Frostburn Weird and pumping it with Courser Kruphix as well. But I actually don't really know why he didn't attack with Pelucranos. But, that's fine with me. So he attacks with just Stormbreath Dragon, which I will just turn and burn, because we do have Cyclonic Rift in the waiting, just in case we have to bounce Pelucranos back. Draw the Cyclonic Rift, and missing another land drop, we have another Courser of Kruphix waiting on our library, which sort of sucks. Don't really want to see another one of those, even though the life gain is nice. We want to hit our land drops to be able to overload Cyclonic Rift. So here I just opt to play Kiora because he only has one threat on board. We're able to lock it down with Kiora. So this is, again, if this was a Jace, for example, this card wouldn't be as good in my opinion. But Kiora is perfect against these green-red monsters or Jund monsters where they usually only have one or two large threats on board. And we have some removal to be able to make it so we can lock down our opponent's threats, which is nice. So I attack in, and he is going to block, but none of our creatures will die, and we end up just pumping Frostburn Weird to get some damage in. So here he plays Domri Raid. Of course, not playing Xenaghost because Pelucranos won't be able to do any damage anyways. And he ends up drawing into a Reaper of the Wilds with his Domri Raid. Definitely sucks, but we're definitely on the goal of trying to bait him into an overloaded Cyclonic Rift. Hopefully he has forgotten about it, considering he can see the top of our deck. So he ends up just plussing Domri and then passing the turn. We draw our Courser, reveal a Breeding Pool on top of our deck. Slowly getting there, getting towards that overloaded Cyclonic Rift. So we are at 6 lands right now. We really only need 1 land to overload that Cyclonic Rift, which is awesome. So I took a really large gamble here. My goal was to actually -1 Kiora and hopefully be able to take off Sylvan Caryatid and reveal a land on top of our library, and that way we're able to play it with Courser of Kruphix and have that overloaded Cyclonic Rift ready to go. And if you can see, overloading a Domri Raid, Pelucranos, and Sylvan Caryatid back into his hand would be an extremely large tempo game. So here's sort of where I took a really big risk, and it didn't pay off. Sadly, didn't pay off, but you know, we see a Jace on top of our library, missing another land drop, sadly, and now we don't have the ability to lock down a creature. So I wasn't sure exactly where to go at that point. Maybe you guys could tell me if that was the right line of play or not. I don't know if the risk was worth it, but it was definitely something I was aiming for. I definitely got baited into that overloaded Cyclonic Rift. But instead we play our Stormbreath Dragon and kill off that Domri Raid because we don't want him fighting our Stormbreath Dragon or anything of that sort. But our opponent does draw another one anyways and kills off our Stormbreath Dragon thanks to Pelucranos. So he ends up attacking. And let's see, so here it was sort of a misplay on my part. I actually, considering it had 4 damage on it already, I actually should have just blocked with Frostburn Weird and killed it off and protected my Kiora. But I totally forgot about the damage being marked on it. Cockatrice actually doesn't mark any damage for you or anything like that, so I totally forgot about it, and I just let Kiora die, which definitely sort of sucks. I'm not sure if I should have even done that anyways. I didn't really know how important Kiora was. Like, seeing his hand right now, he has 2 Pelucranos in his hand already, but of course I didn't know that. So he ends up tapping his mana and playing another Pelucranos to be able to have a blocker up to block for Domri Raid. So it wouldn't have really mattered too much. He would have had a Pelucranos in play anyways, and I would have been down if Frostburn Weird. Wasn't really thinking about that, but now that I think about it, I guess that sort of makes sense. We draw our Jace, and sadly miss another land drop. Another Courser of Kruphix sitting on top of our library. Sort of sucks, but it is what it is. Because overloaded Cyclonic Rift would be awesome at this point. We end up -2ing Jace, because here I'm trying to hit the land. We totally miss on all of our land drops, and they're even on top of our library. There's another Prophet of Kruphix sitting on top of there. He splits it so Frostburn and Courser are together, so we take the Prophet of Kruphix, because that's a super strong card in this deck. And we end up just playing our Frostburn Weird and attacking to be able to kill off Domri Raid. Didn't want him to start drawing into more threats, so it was worth being able to kill off Domri Raid to sacrifice one of our creatures. He chooses to kill off Courser. That's perfectly fine with us. And here he plays his Xenaghost that was back from the beginning of the game. gives his Pelucranos +5/+5 and haste to swing through. He's swinging at me, and so I totally forgot about the card Gorklan Rampager. I totally forgot about that card. So he ends up Gorklan Rampaging the Pelucranos, and we go down to 3. I should have got the hint when he attacked me. We untap, play a Sylvan Caryatid. Sadly, our Courser's dead, so we can't reveal land off the top of our library. So here we're in a bit of a pickle. I have to knock out Jace to try and draw that 7th land to have that overloaded Mizium Mortars ready. But again, with a full drawing 3 cards with Jace, we miss a land drop. So there was like, 6 draws in a row that we didn't have a land. So I got super baited into just holding the Cyclonic Rift to overload it. But in reality, I just missed so many land drops, which was sort of bad luck. He ends up putting Turn and Burn and Sylvan Caryatid together. So I opt to just take those because we already have a Prophet of Krufix. And Turn and Burn's one of our best removal spells. So I end up playing just Prophet of Krufix because it allows us to untap our mana at our opponent's turn and have Turn and Burn ready to go to be able to deal with his threat. So he draws into Stormbreath Dragon, so he's drawing pretty hot with his deck, and he swings through with everything. Xenagos is live at this point, which definitely sucks. But we decide to chump Pelucranos with Frostburn Weird and Turn and Burn the Stormbreath Dragon. So this ends up, if he has Gorklan Rampager, he has Gorklan Rampager. There isn't really too much we can do about that. We end up turning burning, so it knocks out the devotion, so Xenagos doesn't become a creature anymore, and we end up just sacrificing a Frostburn Weird, which is surviving. We are definitely surviving at this point, but we are definitely not out of the woods yet. We draw our own Stormbreath Dragon, which is actually really, really nice here. But, again, missing land. I'd play Courser Krufix trying to hit another land drop. We see Aetherize, which is actually not a bad deal. If he gets Xenagos online, and he swings through, we're able to actually Aetherize and totally blow him out. And this is why I really love Prophet of Krufix. When we're playing against decks that don't carry a ton of removal, and it allows us to sit there, you can see that we're just able to play everything on our turn and just be able to leave everything up to deal with on our opponent's turn. So we play a Sylvan Caryatid and have everything untapped and ready to go to be able to chump block. The goal is to pretty much play around Gorklan Rampager, but it's a little bit tough for that, sorry. Plays a Reaper of the Wilds, but in response to that, I Cyclonic Rift the Xenagos just so he isn't able to give his creatures a boost in damage. Because if he gave his Pelucranos, for example, make it a 10/10 with Gorklan Rampager, doesn't really matter how we block. It's a little bit tough for us to block that way without losing pretty much our whole board. So in response, I bounce Xenagos back. He has the Reaper of Wilds, but luckily it doesn't get haste or anything like that. He swings with Pelucranos, and I opt to triple block him with Courser, Sylvan, and Sylvan to be able to play around Gorklan Rampager. So he ends up killing both of the Sylvan Caryatids after monstrosity it for 1. But luckily he has no Gorklan Rampager. And here we're able to hold up Aetherize, and finally we have a land on top. And it is our 7th land, but at this point we've already used our Cyclonic Rift, so that definitely sucks. We play it, but we get a life though still, and we get to play our Stormbreath Dragon. So again, here's where Prophet of Krufix really shows its power. We're able to play our own threat, swing in, get some damage in, and have Aetherize ready to go on our opponent's turn. And I'm not sure if my opponent was on tilt or he just wasn't paying attention, but he definitely forgot to worry about Aetherize, and he totally makes it a blow up for us. He swings through with both of his creatures, and we end up Aetherizing him. I actually wanted to bait him into using a Gorklan Rampager if he had it, so this is how I blocked. Potentially threatening to kill off his Pelucranos. But he has no Gorklan Rampager, so I end up Aetherizing anyways, and it totally sets him back super far and it blows them out. But here I just want to point out a super sweet interaction that I didn't even think about. So if you look at how much mana we have up, we have 7 mana, which we're able to Monstrosity Stormbreath Dragon. And for those of you who don't know what it does, whenever it becomes monstrous, it deals damage equal to the number of cards in that player's hand. So if you look at the math right now, on our turn, Stormbreath Dragon will be a 7/7 plus dealing our opponent 4 damage because we return 2 creatures to his hand. So at this point, he'll take 4 plus 7, perfectly lethal, and that was just a super sweet interaction that I didn't even think about before. Being able to return everything to our opponent's hand, and then being able to do more damage thanks to Stormbreath's monstrosity, which is super super sweet, and it totally wins us the game here. So my opponent concedes after he figures this out for himself on my turn when I start tapping my Lantern Monstrosity him. And yeah, that was just super awesome. I was definitely glad to get out of that game. I think we both misplayed quite a bit, but I'm still learning with this deck. This deck is super hard to play, but as you can see, it's super rewarding and there's a lot of fun interactions. And it can definitely put your opponent on tilt, I'm sure, being able to bounce everything back to their hand. I think the one thing that I would have not done is probably try and go to the Cyclonic Rift. I'm not really sure if that was the right play, but I think considering the permanents he had on board and how much they costed, I think the overloaded Cyclonic Rift was worth it to risk for. Maybe I'm wrong. Definitely let me know in the comments below of what you guys think and what you guys would have done, as well as point out any other mistakes that I may have made, because, again, this is the first time I've actually played with this deck, and it's definitely a tough deck to play, but I'm super excited to build upon it. It's a super fun deck to play. I have yet to draw Keranos. I didn't draw him this game, but, you know, it is what it is. Sadly only had time to play this one game, but it just wanted to give you guys a little teaser, I guess, to how it looks, and definitely feel free to leave any suggestions for the deck if you have them, and I will definitely get some more gameplays of this deck for you guys in the future. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.